fall card using the Blackout Technique with the Spellbinders September 2025 Club Kits. I'll be working with the Autumn Breeze Embossing Folder and the Autumn Whim Clear Stamp and Die of the Month. These two clubs pair so beautifully together, and I can't wait to show you how this technique makes the colors pop right off the card. So I hope you all stay tuned to see how I made this card. For today's card project, I'm going to be playing with two of the Spellbinders September 2025 Club Kits. First up is the Amazing Embossing Folder of the Month Club. This is called Autumn Breeze. It's a beautiful 2D embossing folder that's just perfect for fall, y'all. Lots of fun leaves in this embossing folder, so I highly recommend getting this for fall. And then I'm also going to be using the Clear Stamp and Die of the Month Club called Autumn Whim. There's some great sentiments in here for fall, and there's even one in here for Halloween, which is really cool. I've already been playing with it, as you can tell. And one more thing I just wanted to point out, as you can see, there's a stencil in here. So if you get the Deluxe Caboodle, you'll receive all 10 club options plus a special monthly bonus item. This month bonus is a stencil designed to color your images for the Clear Stamp and Die of the Month Club. Here it is. There's two of them. The stencil isn't meant to line up perfectly. It's supposed to give an artsy, freeform look, which I think makes it extra fun to play with. So Spellbinders was kind enough to send me these items since I'm an affiliate, and I'll have my affiliate links listed below if you'd like to shop the September 2025 clubs. So thank you all so much for shopping those links. I really appreciate it. Before I jump into today's card making, I want to share the two cards I created for Spellbinders this month. For the first card, I used the Clear Stamp and Die of the Month Club. I colored in the images with my Simon Hurley inks and the coordinating stencil I mentioned earlier. Super quick and easy to make. It's a nice flat card. I also heat embossed the images with Simon's new Black Widow ink from his Stellar ink line. And oh my goodness, y'all, that ink pad is incredibly juicy and so versatile. You can stamp, blend, and even watercolor with it, which is really cool. I used the smooth side of the Distress Watercolor cardstock, which worked beautifully. So here's that first card. And then for the second card, the one I'll be showing you how I made today, I used the really cool Blackout Technique with Simon Hurley inks. So here it is. And then I used some of those extra fall elements that I had from my previous video. I told you all I know I would be using those for another card, so I did. So now without further ado, let's get into the card making fun. To start off today's card, I pulled out my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine because I'll be doing some embossing with the Embossing Folder of the Month Club called Autumn Breeze. Remember, this is a 2D embossing folder, so be sure to follow the correct instructions for 2D folders, not 3D, when using the Universal Plate system. For my paper, I'm using Distress Watercolor cardstock, and I'll be working on the smooth side for today's technique. I didn't want to spritz the cardstock with water. There really wasn't a need for it this time. Now I'm running the embossing folder through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and wait until you'll see the texture on this, y'all. It is gorgeous, the detail on it that it leaves behind. It looks amazing on both sides of the cardstock. And that's one thing I love about this Autumn Breeze folder. And it really shines no matter how you use it. Okay, and one more thing I wanted to point out is even though this is a 2D folder, that texture is so crisp and deep. You can see all those beautiful fall patterns. They really pop right off the cardstock. So I thought this was perfect for trying out the Blackout Technique. So I'm still pretty new to the Blackout Technique, but I did watch quite a few videos to get a feel for how it works. Like I mentioned earlier, I thought the Autumn Breeze embossing folder would be the perfect one to try it with because of all the detail in the design. The raised areas really make the technique shine. For inks, I grabbed a variety of Simon Hurley inks. I just love his color range and how smoothly they blend together. When you first start laying down the color, it honestly is going to look like a bit of a hot mess, and that's okay. That's really the nature of this technique. You're not going for a perfect gradient or a polished background here. You're building up color so that later when we do the blackout step, those little pops of bright ink show through the embossed areas and make the design come alive. I'm blending the inks across the background in no particular order at all. I'm just moving from one color to the next, letting them overlap and mix naturally. And the randomness actually works in your favor here because it creates a more organic fall-inspired look with lots of variation. Since I don't have a separate blending brush for every color or every ink family, I'm just wiping my brushes off in between colors on my microfiber cloth. That works out fine. There's a little bit of crossover, but it adds to the blended effect. For me, it's more about the overall feel than perfect transitions. At this stage, it doesn't look like much. It's a little messy, a little patchy, but that's exactly what you want with the blackout technique. Trust the process. Once we put the darker layer over the top, the magic happens, and all of those random colorful areas peeking through will give this card so much dimension and real wow factor. When working on the background, there's really no rhyme or reason to where I'm putting the inks down, like I said earlier. I'm not trying to create a specific pattern or a planned blend. It's more about just letting the colors land where they land. Honestly, that's part of the fun of this technique. I also wanted to challenge myself to use as many colors as I could. I mean, I have them, so why not? It's the perfect excuse to dip into my collection and really play. Plus, the more colors you add, the more variation and interest you'll get once we move into the blackout step. And can we just take a second to talk about Simon Hurley ink names? I love them. They are just so fun and creative. And somehow the names always stick in my head when I'm reaching for a shade. It just makes the whole process that much more enjoyable. So at this point, the background definitely looks a little wild, y'all, but that's exactly what I want. It might look messy now, but all that random color is going to work beautifully when I lay down the blackout layer. That's when everything will pull together and the design will really start to shine. So before I move on to the next step, I just want to lay down a couple of more colors onto the panel. Like I said earlier, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just adding more layers because the more variation I have underneath, the better this technique looks in the end. At least that's what I think. So I'm adding a couple more colors to the panel before moving on. Like I said, no rhyme or reason, just layering for more variation. That's the beauty of this technique, y'all. The more color underneath, the better it looks in the end. So why is it called the blackout technique? I hope I'm going to explain this correctly. So once your background is full of color, you swipe a darker ink over the embossed surface. Remember, we're doing this on the deboss side. So the darker layer blacks out most of the design while the color peeks through in the recessed areas. It's such a cool effect. So for today's card, I'm using brown ink instead of black. It just feels warmer and it fits the fall theme perfectly. So when you swipe the ink pad, remember to use light pressure so the color only hits the raised areas and doesn't fill in the background. That's where the magic really happens, y'all. Check out that background. See why y'all need this embossing folder? It's absolutely perfect for the blackout technique. Now that the panel is embossed and inked, I'm moving on to some die cutting. I want to trim it down nice and evenly, so I'm grabbing the A2 Matting Basics B die set and using the largest die in the set. This set is one of my go-to tools for creating card panels because it gives you perfectly sized layers every single time. I've got my Platinum 6 die cutting machine back out and I'll run the panel through with the die to get that clean edge. And one thing I want to remind myself here is to save all the pieces, even the little scraps or the frames that come from trimming with these basic dies can be reused for other cards or the current card, which I'm going to do for accent layers. So nothing goes to waste in my craft room. It all finds a home somewhere down the line. So once this piece is trimmed, I'll have a beautiful even card panel ready to build on for the rest of today's project. Next up, I'm pulling out my A2 Matting Basics A die set and using the largest die in the set. This one is going to create the matting layer that sits right behind my embossed panel. For the cardstock, I chose Saffron Yellow from the Spellbinders COLORWHEEL collection. I thought it matched so nicely with the fall colors I blended onto the panel. It adds just the right pop of warmth without overpowering the design, and it really ties in with the overall autumn feel of the card. So once this layer is cut, I'll have the perfect base to frame the embossed panel and make all the texture and color stand out even more. Okay, y'all, it's time to move on to some stamping. I've got out my Misty stamping tool here and the clear Stampin' Die of the Month Club set called Autumn Whim. This set has some really great fall sentiments in it, even one for Halloween, so it's a versatile one to have in your stash. I'll go ahead and stamp the sentiment twice in the Misty to get a nice crisp impression. That way the color looks bold and solid against the cardstock and it really stands out as the focal point. By the way, what do you all think about the September 2025 Spellbinders Clubs? Do you have a favorite this month, or are you going all in with the deluxe caboodle? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing what everyone is excited about. Also, don't forget I'll have my affiliate link listed in the description box if you'd like to shop the clubs. And please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. It helps me out so much and lets me know you'd like to see more card making content like this. The sentiment is all stamped and ready to go. And before I get into the cleaning of the stamp, I'm getting out my coordinating dies. And just FYI, not all the sentiments have matching dies, so keep that in mind. But there are all dies to cut out the images from the clear Stampin' Die of the Month, is what I'm trying to say. But anyways, so now I'm going to be bringing in my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois to clean off the stamp. I always like to clean my stamps before putting them back in the packaging. It keeps them in good shape and ready for next time. Using a chamois and just a little water is such an easy and quick way to get all the ink off without any fuss. To cut out the sentiment, I'm using my Anna Griffin Empress mini die cutting machine. This is my go-to electric machine and I absolutely love it. Someday I'd love to add the full-size version to my craft room, but for now the mini is perfect for smaller cuts like this. I keep the machine off to the side of my desk, so here I'm just grabbing the correct die and carefully lining it up over the stamped image. I love using the magnetic mat with this machine. It holds the dies in place so nicely, which means no tape is needed. And the best part is that this mat lasts forever, y'all. So it's a real workhorse in my craft space. It's time to start layering all the pieces together, and this is exactly why I mentioned saving those extra frame cuts earlier. I'm going to be taking that leftover frame and layering it behind the saffron yellow mat. It adds just a touch of depth and detail, and it really gives the card panel a more complete and polished look. Sometimes it's the little details like this that make the biggest difference. Off camera, I also went ahead and made an A2 top-folded note card out of Hammermill cardstock. This cardstock is one of my favorites for card bases. It's sturdy, smooth, and holds up really well with layered cards like this. So to start assembling, y'all, I'm using my Spellbinders tape runner here to adhere the layers together. I like using tape runners on embossed panels because they hold well but don't warp the cardstock. I would have popped this up, but I wanted this to really be a flat card, so that's why I'm using the tape runner. So once the base layers are set, it's time to add the sentiment. For that, I'm grabbing some waffle flower foam strips to give the sentiment just a little bit of lift. Popping it up adds dimension and draws the eye right to the center of the card, which is exactly where I'm placing it. That way the sentiment becomes the focal point while still letting all that gorgeous embossed background peek through. And with that, the card panel is finished, y'all. You could absolutely stop here for a clean and simple look, or take it a step further by adding embellishments like sequins, enamel dots, or a touch of sparkle if that's your style. Either way, this card really feels complete. already. And I love how all the layers came together. But remember in my previous video, I had some extra fall die cuts left over? Well, this is the perfect card to use them on. I told you I'd find a reason not to waste them, and they really fit so nicely with the overall design here. I love when I can pull leftover pieces from another project. It saves time, keeps my stash from piling up, and adds a little variety to the card. Plus, since the colors already coordinate with the fall theme, they tie in perfectly without me having to do any extra work. I think just by eyeballing it, I managed to get the sentiment on pretty straight. Sometimes I'll use a ruler or grid lines, but for this one, it lined up nicely without too much fuss. And honestly, a little bit of handmade imperfection just adds to the charm of the card. So here I'm bringing in those fall elements that I mentioned earlier. I had them saved in one of my storage sleeves. I like to keep those little extras like this handy because you never know when they'll come in useful. Instead of letting them go to waste, I thought they'd be perfect accents for this card. I'm arranging them just above the sentiment to draw the eye upward and create a nice balance on the card front. I'm not overthinking the placement, just letting the shapes and colors fall into a cluster that kind of sort of feels natural. So since the sentiment is centered, adding these pieces above it gives the design some movement without overwhelming the background. I didn't want it just plain, so that's why I thought I just had to use these elements. They were just fun. So to adhere them, I'm using my liquid glue, which is my go-to for detailed die cuts. I'm using Barely Arts in my fine line bottle from Spellbinders. It gives me a little wiggle room to adjust things before it sets, and I'll know they'll stay put once the glue dries. I love how these leftover elements add extra texture and dimension while keeping the focus on that blackout panel. So I'm trimming down the stems on these die cuts so they tuck in nicely above the sentiments. So what do y'all think? Does this work for the card, or should I left these fall elements off and just showed off that beautiful background? Let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm really trying to get better about not throwing things out and instead using the pieces I've already made. So y'all, that finishes up this card making project. Here's the completed card. I love how it turned out with the Autumn Breeze embossing folder. And oh my goodness, that Blackout Technique, it's so stunning. I just love it. And the Autumn Whim stamp and die set from the September 2025 Spellbinders Clubs. So great, y'all. So before you go, don't forget to do all the YouTube things. Give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And remember, my affiliate links are listed in the description box if you'd like to shop the September clubs or check out more from Spellbinders. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next card making video. Ciao for now.